Welcome to Porn Talk. This is Powerful Eric. This show is not just about breaking addictions, it's about breaking belief systems. I was listening to my last show. I was pissed off, but I'm not apologizing. I just don't know this whole no fap thing. Is that the politically correct thing to say now? Is that the cool thing to say? I did not fap for X amount of days. I never thought not watching porn or not jacking off would become cool. Just saying. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's great that people are improving themselves. Like I said on the last show, I'm old school. I just call it jacking off or masturbating or acting out. I guess acting out is as politically correct as I get. This show is not about being politically correct. And I've actually expanded the term pornographic to mean things that are outrageous. So some of the things I may say on this show may seem pornographic, like my views on Coconuts 18 and the sheep that blindly do what they are told. But I really can't point the finger. I blindly did what I was told for decades from the so-called addiction experts, and what they told me made things much worse. These no-fap day counters mean well, but they are setting people up for failure, just like the 12-step programs set me up for failure. How many days did you not do the thing? You're focusing on not doing something. I just got off the phone with one of my coaching clients and he had a slip. How do you feel after you've had a slip? God knows I have been there countless times. It sucks. Here's a little bit of what I told him. I said, if you are counting days, you are disempowering yourself. Here's how the 12-step meetings disempowered me. For one, you could not lead or chair a meeting unless you had 30 days of sobriety. So what would often happen, let's say there's somebody that has a year of sobriety, then they have a slip, then they go back to zero. The counter starts all over again. They cannot chair meetings again until they have another 30 days of sobriety. And so people are like, well, I've slipped already. I may as well keep going. And that's what would happen to me all the time. I would be counting my days. I got 7 days of sobriety. I got 2 weeks of sobriety. I got a month of sobriety. And it builds up this tension that you don't want to blow it. You don't want to blow it. And then eventually you do blow it. You blow your load. It just adds a lot of stress. It adds a lot of tension. For me, counting days was very disempowering. So the question is then, what does work? Well, if you're not going to count days, what are you going to do? There are 3 ways that I'm going to talk about very quickly. The first way is just to set the date and forget it. Set it and forget it. There used to be an old infomercial, and it would say, it was a cooking device, and they would say, you can set it and forget it. Just set the date that you were sober and just forget about it. Stop counting days. Another way is, if you're going to count days, this is one way that does work. So let's say you have 10 days of sobriety and you have a slip. So on that day, you don't count that day as a successful day, but then the next day that you have a sober day, you keep counting. So you had 10 days, then you had a break in there that you slipped. And then the next day you just keep counting. So that it's 11, 12, 13. You don't go back to zero. When you have a slip or a relapse, that does not negate all the successes that you had. And that's what it felt like for me in the 12-step programs. When I would have a slip, I go back to zero. I can't chair meetings anymore. I start all over again. And boy, it was really traumatic for guys that did have quite a bit of sobriety, and then they slip, and then they go on a binge, a bender, a relapse. But this way, if you just keep counting, you will not have that tendency to binge or just keep acting out. Another way to do it, and I really like this way a lot, you get a calendar and you just mark an X on each successful day that you have. And then if you have a day that you slipped, then you just don't mark that day. And then at the end of the month, you can go back and look at the calendar and say, wow, look at all these successful days. Yes, there's may have been some days that you were not successful, but you look at it this way. When I was in grade school and I did bad on a test, it would say like -10 or -20. You got those many wrongs. And it was in red ink too. They corrected in red ink. You get a -20. That's terrible. Or you got or let's say it was just maybe -2. It was still that in ink, -2. Always made me feel so bad. Terrible. I really struggled in school. But then later on, they started, instead of subtracting -2, they looked at it by a percentage. Oh, you got 98% correct. And that was empowering for me. Oh, I got a 98%, or I got a 90%, rather than a -2 or a -10 or whatever. That little nuance, that little change can make a huge difference in your sobriety, because your mind says, oh, I had 90% of the month sober. You can look at those X's. If you really want to figure it out, this is the math behind it. So let's say that there's 30 days in the month and you had 28 days sober. So you just take 28 divided by 30. That gives you what, 98%. So that's a much more empowering way to look at it. Yes, it is still counting, but it's counting in a different way. Or if you want to take the whole year, if you've been doing that for a long time, you can look at the whole year. Hey, I was sober 90% of the time for the year. Whereas the other way, you focus on the negative, on what you did not do right. So those are just to recap real quick. There are 3 ways to count alternatively. Can't say it. Alternatively. The first way is just to set the date, that your first sobriety date, and then just forget it. The second way is to just keep counting. So you had 11 days sober, then you had a slip, or maybe even a relapse where you had a whole week off. Then when you pick it up, when you have your next sober day, then you start counting again. So you had 11 days, you had a slip or a relapse, and then you started your successes again. So then it's 12, 13, 14. So the second way is to keep counting. And the third way is just to mark an X on the calendar every day that you're sober. And if you want to come up with your percentage at the end of the month or the end of the year, just do the math. And again, just to be clear, if it's a 30-day month and you are sober 28 days of that month, then you just take 28, divide that by 30, and that will give you the percentage. So those are the 3 ways. Set it and forget it is one. The second way is to keep counting. And the third way is to mark the X on the calendars. Trust me on this. Trust me on this. I wish someone would have shared this with me. It would have made my life so much better. Trust me, brothers. I have been there. It sucks. I know slipping and relapsing sucks. I can't talk today. So that's it. And I will close with this empowering quote from Bruce Lee, who was talking about being defeated or feeling defeated. Bruce Lee said, "Defeat is a state of mind. No one is ever defeated until defeat has been accepted as reality. To me, defeat in anything is merely temporary, and its punishment but an urge for me to exert greater effort to achieve my goal. Defeat simply tells me there is something wrong in my doing. It is a path that leads to success and truth.